Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Constable Danny McKinnon. I'm with the Winnipeg Police Service Public Information Office. Today we have two matters to release on. One is an update and another is an initiative that we'd like to discuss with our Community Support Division. So this first one is an update to a sexual exploitation and an assault investigation. As previously released, in April 2022, the Winnipeg Police Services Sex Crimes Unit was contacted separately by 8 adults who reported historical incidents of sexual exploitation and sexual abuse by their former high school football coach that occurred between the 1990s to the 2000s. The accused taught physical education and coached football at Churchill High School and Vincent Massey Collegiate for approximately 2 decades. The survivors reported similar accounts of exploitive relationships forged by the coach, leading to sexual offenses at his residence. A 52-year-old male, Kelsey McKay of Winnipeg, was charged with 22 sexual assault and exploitation-related charges. And for the update, while continuing their investigations, the sex crime unit was contacted by another former student who reported being exploited and sexually assaulted as a teen by the same high school coach during the 2000s. On September 7th, McKay was charged with 2 new offenses, sexual assault and luring a child under 18. He was released by way of Crown authorization with conditions. Anyone with information or who wishes to speak to an investigator can contact the Sex Crimes Unit at 204-986-6245. In addition, there are supportive resources such as the Winnipeg Police Victim Services and Clinic Sexual Assault Crisis Line, and those numbers are both available at the bottom of the release. So in terms of questions, I think what we'll do is, if you have any questions, we'll save them all to the end because I'll be inviting up Inspector George Labossiere from our Community Support Division shortly. And first, I'm going to discuss a sexual abuse in sport public education piece. The Winnipeg Police Service Community Relations Unit is committed to providing education and awareness around various topics impacting the community. At the start of this new year, with children of all ages, the issue of sexual exploitation and abuse in sports is a relevant topic to discuss. A call for action and change is at the forefront for educators, law enforcement, and media. The Winnipeg Police Service is creating new and relevant presentations for parents, athletes, and sporting organizations to educate and prevent sexual abuse in sport. Sexual exploitation and abuse usually occur hand in hand, and they develop through a grooming process. It's facilitated by the coach. In these cases, the coach forges a relationship of trust and promise with not just the athlete, but with their family as well. Athletes and parents come to believe this close relationship is special, may be helpful and unique to their child, and will be advantageous to their sporting future. Some red flags for this behavior include the following: a coach having one-on-one electronic communication with an athlete, for example, texting. This should never occur. Rather, group chats are acceptable. Inviting an athlete to a coach's home should never occur. Rather, gatherings in public are acceptable. Being alone in a vehicle with an athlete, that is not acceptable. Carpooling or driving with more than one athlete is acceptable. Sharing a room alone or overnight with an athlete is not acceptable. Room checks with a chaperone is acceptable for overnight trips. And as well, a coach frequently touching an athlete without asking permission or insisting that personal massages are beneficial is not acceptable. They can ask permission to touch an athlete only to demonstrate proper technique, only with permission. These listed behaviors are never acceptable. Coaches must complete certifications that clearly outline the difference between acceptable and non-acceptable behaviors between a coach and an athlete. These courses outline the difference between behaviors, language, and boundaries. Kids and parents should be aware of the signs of these behaviors that partake in the grooming process. They can lead to sexual exploitation and sexual abuse. If anyone's wishing to book a presentation, and we'll hear more about this in a moment from Inspector Labossiere, if anyone's wishing to book one of these presentations about sexual abuse in sport or any other topics, you can see the link below to sign up. As well, there's another link from Sport Manitoba regarding safe sport information. And finally, anyone with information about sexual exploitation or sexual abuse in sport, or who wishes to speak to an investigator, can call the Sex Crimes Unit at 204-986-6245. And as well, the same resources I mentioned are available through WPS Victim Services and the Clinic Sexual Assault Crisis Line. I will now call up Inspector Labossiere. He's going to give a little bit of a preamble and be available to answer some questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Constable McKinnon. Good afternoon, welcome to all. Thank you for making the time to be here today. I just want to acknowledge the fact that it's a difficult topic when we talk about sexual assault of any kind, in particular when we're talking about vulnerable people like young children, student athletes, things of that nature. And with that, knowing, having worked many years in the child abuse area, I want to acknowledge how difficult it must have been for the victim to come forward, and I just want to state that it takes courage and good for them, because it'll help in preventing these people from reoffending and certainly help in the education process. And that leads me to where I am today. From our division, in the Community Support Division, we certainly feel that it's a right time for us to enhance the material we put out there to the public, to the students, the coaches, and the parents, to ensure that we can prevent these things from happening in the future. We have a great deal of information currently on our web pages, which many of you have accessed in the past. We want to make sure that we do a better job of reaching out to the students, coaches, and parents. And in so doing, having material on our web page is not nearly enough. We want to open ourselves up to presentations in a live format where we can speak to either of these three groups and really get a chance to not only share our material verbally, through other forms like media, videos and PowerPoints and things of that nature, but to get into frank discussions with these students and coaches and parents at different times to ensure they all know what they should be watching out for. I think this is something that is very close to the heart of our community support unit, and we are, as mentioned by Constable McKinnon, open up for booking of these sessions, and by October we look forward to putting all of that out there for the various sport teams across our province. I think it's also important to note that we'll be working more closely with some sports teams in Sport Manitoba to make sure that every team is on the same page when it comes to preventing situations like this from happening. So again, I thank you for your time. Thank you for allowing me to talk about what we're putting out there, and I will open up to questions if you have any.
In this case involving Kelsey McKay, do police believe there are more victims?
You know, I will defer the investigational aspect to Constable McKinnon.
Sure.
Did you want to have that now, or?
We can save them to the end, maybe?
Yeah, sure.
Let's save
If that's okay.
investigative questions to the end. And
With these presentations and this initiative, this case involving Kelsey McKay, did that lead to this effort, or was this something that the police service had already been working on?
Well, truthfully, we've been working on this for a little while, and the sad reality is that what's happened here in Winnipeg has been happening elsewhere, whether it be the NHL or various sports organizations throughout North America. We've seen, again, Hockey Canada, we've seen situations with gymnasts in the U.S. We felt it was time for us to do something, and it just so happened that this came out at the same time.
Now, was this in consultation with Sport Manitoba, the Sheldon Kennedy Foundation, any other groups in consultation with them, or was this strictly a WPS, I don't want to say initiative, but were you working with other groups to kind of formulate this program?
Yeah, we certainly aren't reinventing the wheel here, but we are putting this out in our police form. We have had some consultations with other groups. Certainly, we've reached out to Sport Manitoba, and we will look to partner with not only Sport Manitoba, but other groups as well to ensure that we have the best package out there for the people we're looking to target.
And will the presentations, the education be limited to sports or will it include other settings in which students interact with teachers?
Yeah, that's a very good point. I think the fact that we call it what we do, sexual abuse in sport, doesn't preclude the fact that this happens in other group settings. Well, I won't pick any one of them to say, but really anytime you have an adult leader working with young children, these same types of behaviors can occur. Therefore, we would open ourselves up to other groups outside of sport as well, absolutely.
What is it about the sports setting that seems to make it more prevalent? Is it the trust in coaches?
Yeah, I would think that plays a part in it, certainly. I mean, I think that for whatever reason, it seems to have happened, again, not only here in our country, but in many countries around the world. I mean, certainly young athletes do look to their coaches for that leadership, that guidance, and therefore there's an element of trust put in that individual that perhaps gives those coaches distinct opportunities. And again, when we talk about a grooming process where an individual is looking to take advantage of a child, it's something that happens over time. And a coach can certainly leverage, whether it be playing time or various opportunities, to their advantage. And so making sure that the students are aware of these things, making sure that people know what is appropriate behavior versus not appropriate, will hopefully help prevent crimes in the future.
Police have any sense of how prevalent this may be, whether there are more Kelsey McKays out there?
Well, I certainly would like to think no, but the reality is I think we'd be naive to think that it isn't happening. I really can't comment to what extent, but the sad reality is that in all likelihood, yes. And that's why I led off by commending the people who do come forward, knowing how difficult it is to have to relive that offense in the telling of their story. But again, with the courage of doing so, I think they put it out there. They help situations like this where the education piece can be brought forward, and certainly encourage other people to take the right steps.
Is this geared toward a particular age group? Because kids can start sports quite young.
Yeah. Yeah, no, actually, whenever we talk about organized sport, we were looking at any organized sport. So really, it could be at the youngest of ages. Certainly the young kids will be maybe a little more difficult to talk to in terms of helping them understand, but the coaches and the parents will certainly benefit greatly from the information that's being put out there.
And how widespread do you think the need is for this educational program? Because some people may look on and say that some of these red flags are obvious, but at the same time, it keeps happening. So how important, how widespread do you think the need is for this knowledge?
Well, I think it's very important. I mean, I can't say to what degree, what percentage, but I will say that clearly we need only look at over the past 10, 15 years what's happened in our province, never mind what's happened across the country, to know that one offense is too many. And so whatever steps we can take to take care of that, I guess, is what we're looking at, is worthy time on our part.
Do you mind just spelling your name for us, your first?
Not at all, yeah. George, George, Labossiere, Labossiere. Thank you for your...
And you're an inspector, right?
Inspector, that's correct, of the Community Support Division.
Could you just tell us a bit more about the community support division?
Yeah, well, absolutely. Our Community Support Division is really all about community engagement and attempting to reach out to the community on a number of fronts. Specifically, in this case, I'm talking about crime prevention, where we put our members out in positions where they can present relevant material to various groups. Right now, we're talking more about student athletes or young students, but in fact, we talk to adult groups of all kinds, whether it be newcomers or specialty groups in the city of Winnipeg. We certainly like to engage and again, work towards anything crime prevention related or community building related. And so that's one element of my division, the division I work in and proud to be part of. We also deal with victim services. We oversee the auxiliary cadet unit, our Indigenous partnership section, our police liaison team. I'm at the risk of forgetting somebody right now, but these are some of the pieces that are part of our community engagement.
This particular program, how many presentations do you hope to be able to do? Like, do you have a kind of a goal in terms of how many you'd like to do, or is it as many as come in?
Mm-hmm. Well, we certainly have to weigh our availability to make sure that we can follow through with any bookings that we make. If we get a chance to do one presentation and give the opportunity for one young student, one parent, one coach to learn and prevent a crime, we know we've succeeded. But realistically, I suspect that we will do multiple presentations over the course of the year. Whether that's in the teens or the 30s, I really can't say, but I know it'll be of value.
Sometimes in cases like this, we hear from other parents or other coaches afterward who say, some things seemed really odd and I thought something wasn't right, or there were rumors, or we just didn't have any evidence, or no one came forward to me and said anything. If somebody suspects maybe that something isn't right, but maybe doesn't have that evidence or isn't sure, I guess what kind of advice would you give to them? And I guess what should be their first port of call if they do decide that it's something that should be brought to the attention of either, let's say, a school or police or some other agency?
I've heard that comment many times before where people have said, I thought there was something wrong. And so I would say this, I would say follow your instincts and trust what you believe you're seeing and ask the question. And asking the question doesn't mean to say you're accusing anybody, but you're certainly bringing light to a situation. The police service is happy to take those calls. We have a number of support groups listed on our webpage that would also be available to them. And again, following up on those instinctive feelers, as you put it, I think would be the key in this messaging.
Just so people don't get too alarmed, David, that you're doing presentations and that educating people on coaches and stuff. Do you have an idea of how many of these types of situations would have come up even in the last 10 years?
No, I'm sorry, I'm not prepared to answer that. I don't know. I apologize.
Because I know a lot of people will start to think that, oh, maybe it's my coach, and they get a little nervous about hearing things like that.
Yeah, we certainly don't want to, raise the alarm bells, but I think, again, we'll agree, one is too many, and so I couldn't tell you how many times it's happened. But our goal certainly is to make sure we can educate so that none happen, right? So that's the hope. I'll turn it back to Constable McKinnon. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Inspector. I think just on the heels of that last question that was asked, it's really important to insert that most of the coaches out there are fantastic humans that work with our children of all ages. And we're not trying to sound the alarm bells, but we know that this is in the forefront of media. We know that there's some very popular incidents that have come forward. We know that those scenarios have affected us all, and as parents you do ask, oh no. So I don't know if I explained it well enough when I was talking about that grooming process. It's not just to the children, but it can be of the parents and the parents alone, because there are circumstances, and not always, in that process where perhaps it's a single parent and that parent could really use the assistance of a drive to and from the sport. And that coach just happens to step in and says, oh, I'll do it. And they're doing it all the time. And then maybe there's a dinner that the parent isn't home in time. Oh, don't worry, I'll take care of that. I want to be very clear in what we said. The coaches all know the rules. They've all taken the certifications and they know what's acceptable and what is not acceptable. So we're not blaming anybody in particular. But if you do start to see those signs, you should definitely follow up on them, because the coaches know the rules. And they want to protect themselves too. Okay, we had a question here. Can you repeat it? It was about...
Just asking if police believe that there may be additional victims.
Yeah. So I don't want to talk too much about this specific case with McKay. I think what I'll say is 9 survivors have come forward since April. The survivors have come on the heels of these press conferences, which is just, it's profound and very brave, which we've discussed. This particular coach taught for 2 decades or just shortly below or more. So I don't know. I certainly hope that's not the case, but it wouldn't be surprising given the information and the magnitude of what we've previously discussed.
The initial,
9 in total that we've released on, yes. 9 that we've released on.
This most recent case that you've just released today, is it also is it confined to the 2 schools previously mentioned, Vincent Massian?
Yeah, so, and of course, I would never name the school that it occurred at because that's really quite private information and could reveal a survivor. We've just indicated that over those 2 decades, McKay worked as a coach at those 2 high schools. So that's all I'll elaborate on that.
Can you say if this latest complainant was an athlete, team athlete?
Yeah, I mean, that's the understanding that the survivors that have come forward thus far were coached by McKay. Yeah.
because he was also a physical ed instructor,
He was, yeah.
but this is still within the realm of his duties.
That's my understanding.
What kind of conditions has he been released on?
I don't have all the conditions with me. They're called Section 161. They're child-related conditions for the safety and prevention of further offenses for children under the age of 18. So some typical, but I won't say are specific to him. You would have to look that up, are usually not to attend places where children attend, such as schools, playgrounds, pools, and whatnot.
Follow up on what Glenn was asking, and I don't mean to pin you down on maybe the sport, because maybe you don't even know. I don't know if there's girls' football there at those schools.
I'm not sure.
So could it have just been a physical education student? Is that possible?
I don't want to, I really don't want to pigeonhole anybody into that. This is very, very private and very sensitive information.
And you wouldn't say gender of the student as opposed to male or female student, or just as student?
It is in there.
Yeah, we did, and previously our release indicated male.
Right. So this latest complaint came forward days after the last press conference, or weeks, or 2 weeks?
I don't know when it.
The publicity has helped.
Yeah, it helps generate a support network. It helps create a framework of comfort, knowing that there are people to help you and that you can move through the process, which is still going to be very difficult.
Sorry, just a process question. So the accused here would have been rearrested, re-interviewed, and then notified of the new charges?
That's correct.
Thank you.
Yep. Any other questions?
Does there come a point where an accused isn't released back into the community? There's a certain number of charges, or is this not that kind of charge?
Anecdotally speaking, the way the process works is if you are charged with an indictable offense, which all of these are, and you meet criteria in the bail reform and the Crown authorizes it, you may or may not be released. If you breach those conditions later on down the road, you may be arrested again.
You've had no indication that it's been breached?
I have no indication of that, and the justice portion is a whole other story that we're not responsible for.
Right.
Anything else? Nope. Thank you very much.
Thank you.